It's interesting. I was speaking about discipline, and which leads into strength. And because I didn't have a lot of energy, I was watching too much Instagram, just random stuff. And
just a black hole of doom scrolling.
Fascinating things, neat discoveries. And when I send you a bunch of shit, like, oh, here the old man goes.
Here you go.
I realized that it's like junk food. I don't feel good after doing it. I don't feel I feel like I gave away all my dopamine to a bunch of strangers who didn't deserve it. But I have noticed that because of the way the algorithms work, it'll just keep pushing me in one direction that it thinks I want. And I'm like, when are the programmers going to get the hang of this? It's like, just because I saw an MMA thing doesn't mean I want to see 10 more. But I got into this thread, and I see these MMA guys, and everybody's not... See, I globalized. It seems that so many people, men, are focused on strength and power as their expression of who they are. I don't see those same people expressing their quality of their thoughts, the beauty of their relationships, their creations, their successes at work. That it's like, I pounded that motherfucker.
Well, that's their line of work. They do that, right? They fight.
Okay, but so I've seen a lot of threads. That's the pro level.
Yeah.
There's lots of people, somebody that goes challenges the boxer, and it's fun to see the arrogant guy get humbled, and it's satisfying. But there's a lot of people who are not pro that feel the need to be a master fighter because they think that they need it. And they'll dedicate hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours to it to feel safe and to feel secure. And that's a good feeling, probably, to know that no one's going to mess with you. But the people that I talked to that were masters at, jiu-jitsu and all this sort of stuff, and they're like, well, that's the last thing I want to do is fight. Man, I'm just going to end up in court. I'm going to hurt this guy worse. And, it's just like, I'm just going to walk away.
Unless it's self-defense and you can prove that it was self-defense.
See, but it's still. And so it's funny, this guy has all this power to defend himself, but really he ends up not wanting to fight because there's this story, this joke about this teacher. This guy comes into the dojo and he's like, you're the master teacher, I want to fight you. Nowadays it's a real thing, but this day, the joke came from before this time. The master teacher says, look, I'm teaching a class right now. Let me finish the class, and then you and me will have whatever is needed, but just sit down and be patient. And so he finishes the class, and the guy's like sitting there, and do you know this story? Do you know this joke? And so after class, the guy's like, all right, are you ready? And he's like, you know what? They're going to teach another class. Let's go outside. You betcha. This is this way. Guy steps out the door. He locks the door behind him. That's beautiful. He didn't want to fight.
No.
So where's all this fighting stuff? This fighting is everybody thinks that you have to fight to get something. You have to fight to...
It's not just fighting. I just had another thought about like a certain reference.
You're valued better if you're...
I'm a car guy. I like cars, you know that. And I know a lot of people who are also car people, whether they're girls or guys. And some of them have cars that are not super fast, but they love driving their cars fast. And there's a lot of people who are car guys whose cars are insanely fast. They're supercars, there's like extreme, turbos, whatever, anything you want to imagine. And they don't drive their cars fast. They know they have the power to do it and they can beat anyone on the street, but they don't even take up the challenge. It's just like the same thing. If the master knows that he can fight and beat whoever, they choose not to do it.
There's a spin-off on that too. So when I bought the Bentley, my brother... I got a kid brother, he's a little older than you. And he's like, just don't be a dick in that car. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, it's worse when a nice car behaves like an asshole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right. And he came and visited, and I let him drive the car. And he drove her from here to home. And I said, do you have fun? And he said two things. One is he said, I feel like an imposter. And we talked about that.
Yeah, we did talk about it.
And I'm like, what? And the other is he said, it's real easy to be a dick in that car and not mean to. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you just touch that pedal and you jump. He said, so sitting behind somebody when it's so easy to pass is not about power. It's about effortless convenience. And I thought the same thing, because it's not about showing, it's just because it can. It's like, you got this horse. I don't need to cut them off, but I sure do I need to be behind the grandma in a wheelchair? She's well looked after, or do I just step to the side and go around? Is that being a jerk because I walked around? See, but because you're in a nice...
It could be.
Because he was in a nice car.
It could be perceived that way.
Exactly. And he said, I get it now. So this weekend I took the girls out for brunch, and we took the Bentley, and Lana got out of the car after we'd gone to lunch and stuff. She's like, I feel car sick. I gotta go lay down. Part of it is she's in the back back on her phone. But the other part is I was like, you know.
So you were kind of messing around.
Well, because I hadn't driven in a while. It was like this moment, and I realized, I was a dick to my own family without even meaning it. So what's the tie-in there? The tie-in there is if you have power, do you need to express it? And I think that people define power differently. There's mechanical power. I did nothing other than save up some money to buy a car. I didn't design that car. I didn't build the engine. I may have put gas in it and put air in the tires, but I did not create that power.
But not everyone can save up as much money and buy such
that car. Costs less than a new truck, and there's a lot of new trucks out there.
Right.
So I think that there's this sense of I'm going to acquire power by buying it, and there's the others who are like, I'm going to acquire power by training for it. There's other people that are just mad and they just got to work it out. Like there's different reasons people get. But this macho culture thing, I don't want anybody coming up and punching me in the face. That sucks. I don't know. Yeah. It's not me challenging anybody. It's just me not understanding. You know,
why can't you just talk to me? Like, why are you being mad? Yeah, now I get it.
Yeah. The sculpture that I made, Man Grenade. Mm-hmm. You remember that? It was the hand holding the grenade and the arm was blown off. And it was just that exact idea that if I overdo it, I pull the pin on that grenade, it's not me tossing it at you, it's I pulled the pin on myself. Mm-hmm. I mean, end of story, you know. Self-inflicted misuse of power. I could go off on that. But anyways, this is about bad decisions is my tie back. Let's say you have that powerful car, but you have anxiety and depression or maybe anger, and now you're in that powerful car. The likelihood that it could be misused because you're pissed off at something and it's real easy to push that pedal, and all of a sudden someone was in a crosswalk. Ouch. Carry that forward to 100 examples, you know. You have that, and then you go to work, and then at work you don't like your job, but was anything done to change the job? No. Was anything done to change the thoughts? No. Because the subconscious child is running the show. And I think that as I realize more and more about what child is driving me, I'm like, motherfucker. I saw this happen with my mom. My mom, I had this amazing dream, and I had it interpreted by two people that I value greatly. And it was wonderful. And I told my mom about it. She took me out to a very nice dinner. Her first comment was immediately about humility. And I was like, Mom, this was a beautiful thing. Why do you immediately go towards, keep it down? We don't need any Icarus here, you know, flying too close to the sun. And I'm like, well, that's not where I was going with this. I said this was, and then I realized at 55, and my mom's 84, that I had her programming in me that was don't go too high. It's not okay to think that stuff because that's arrogant. Either spiritually arrogant, physically arrogant. Don't show wealth. Don't show your smartness. Don't show. And I was like, but I said, I'm not showing, I'm sharing. I'm like, there's a difference.
Yeah.
If I'm showing, it's to displace something. If I'm sharing, it's to encourage something.
Yeah.
It's an invitation. And I was like, son of a bitch, I didn't know I had that. My mom is great. It's not like we barely have words. We talk all the time. That part is healthy, but I didn't know her programming was still in me in that way at my age. I'm like, surprise.
You got to reprogram.
Surprise.
That's
when I got sick.
I see. I had thought.
Shedding the skin. I'm done. Go ahead.
You're good. I had thought about an experiment about the fleas. Fleas jump. Right. Jump really high. And I know, I have a feeling you know about this story. If you put fleas in a jar, they keep jumping and hitting the lid. At a certain time, you can take away the jar, but the fleas will not jump past the lid. And all their generations moving forward will not jump past the lid because they were programmed not to jump past the lid.
I didn't know it was generational. I knew it was...
It's going to stay.
Oh,
because
I didn't know that.
If your parents are like, all right, this is the height we're going to reach, that's it. Most of the kids will probably follow their parents to an extent, or the parents would want the kid to follow their lead. There might be the programming that will not let the kid go past where the parents were. Well, in the case of the fleas experiment, that's what it was. Nowadays, it's different. So a lot of kids strive to do better than their parents. If we were to talk about like career-wise or financial situation.
Well, you have a much longer life than a flea.
That is also
so there's a lot more
to achieve potentially.
There's a lot more time to decide about the jar than I don't know how long a flea lives, a month or something. But I get what you're saying.
But you had that programming based on what your mom had the programming.
I'll have that and more, I'm sure.
Right. The subconscious stays there.
So busting through it, and not even busting, but getting through it is the part that feels like, I don't know, when's the first time you said no to your parents? Your mom asked you to do something, you said, no, I'm not going to do it.
I can't think of it, but I mean, I do it I do it often now.
Well, I'm sure you've been a jerk to your parents.
I have been
Kids
a jerk.
do that. But when did you just say, no, I'm not going to do this? This is a terrible idea.
I never really thought about it that way. I don't know.
Well, it's a risky move.
It was more like,
given.
hey, don't do this. And you're like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And
yeah,
they're like, okay, fine, do whatever you want. And then that phrase, do whatever you want, from your mom or from your dad, it's like, oh, dang, I can't.
Okay, but you get the difference that I'm saying. Is that it's a non-emotional pushback. It's just like...
It's logical.
It's just like, no, that's not good for me. And in fact, that's really bad for me. Why would I do that? You're you, I'm me. I'm not going to do that. That's how you would decide. If you've had that moment, a lot of people don't have that moment out of respect for their parents.
Yeah, 100%.
And what they're in the hardships their parents. But it's not that I would say it's a little healthy to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's healthy for them also because the habits are driving. Your habit, their habit of expectation, and your habit is like, Mom, I appreciate what you're saying, but that's not how I'm built. Or dad. Or
recently, I've been doing it with certain things that my mom would ask, or I guess she more like asks for advice, or other things that I'm like, no, don't do this. I tell her, don't do this. She's like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm no, don't. But obviously, like, I just thought about like a funny interaction, and I'm sure a lot of people have gone through it. It's like, your friend, you explain to your parents, hey, my friend did this, and it's some dumb thing that your friend did. You're like, I'm going to do that too. And your parents are like, okay, well, your friend's going to go jump off the bridge. You're going to do that too? And then you're like, of course, no, it's not good for me, right? That's the only no I could say to my mom, like, yeah, no. If my mom told me like, hey, you should do this, I don't like have a moment that I remember that'd be like, no, that's not good for me. My mom had offered me a lot of jobs previously. She's like, oh, you could do this, oh, you could do this. And I was like, no. But I was already like in my 20s and I had a better understanding of what I would want to do. Her suggestions were very appreciated. At the time I didn't have a job. I needed some sort of income. But there are certain suggestions of hers that I was like, no, sorry, but I appreciate it, but no. But
well,
as a kid, I've never had anything like that.
Well, there's other people that may watch this that they had their parents were not cool with them, and so it's like no from age 2, right? And it sticks. But there's others who had a really great relationship with their parents. It's like, well, why wouldn't I? I'm there to help their life be easy as they, so. But I'm just saying, in the philosophical moment, in the way that your decision-making skills differ from your parents' decision-making skills, there's a watershed moment that can happen. And that is not comfortable, but it's good for both people, I would say.
I did want to talk about your trip.
Okay.
Can we touch on it?
So I took this trip to California, New Mexico, and Arizona. The reason for going, there were like very specific reasons. Katya and I went to California to look at neighborhoods because Villa Oasis, we want to buy a place in California for all the reasons we've talked about. So we went to San Diego and we made our way up towards San Francisco, looking at different areas. That trip was beautiful but confusing to me because I fell out of alignment. I started looking at all these neighborhoods and I felt a little claustrophobic. The beaches were beautiful, but as I mentioned, driving in these neighborhoods, everybody has privacy treaties. You can't really, I'm like, I don't get a sense of what's happening.
Fly the drone.
And then it's like, oh, the prices. It's like, oh, 20 million this. And then it's not only 20 million, it's $250,000 in taxes a year. And it'll kick you in the balls every month. And I slipped from everything is possible to that's really not worth it. And so I had a crack in valuation. Even if I was really wealthy, would I still agree to that? You know, it's like, would I? So I started getting kind of coming out of the ethers on that. And it was like, and it just, California began to feel further away from me. And so that was my first step out of alignment. Then Katya and I had an argument about something. And we needed to realign because the house is something different for me. And she wants a certain neighborhood and I want a certain structure. And so we misaligned there. And so now I'm like dragging on the ground. I'm like, this is not fun. Like, I'm having fun moments, but I took myself off the rails and I was upset about something. And then I got upset at Katya about something. She didn't do anything to take that hit. And I'm like, man, I'm not myself right now. When I travel, I'm like an uncoordinated child, you know? I don't know how to stand on my own. I'm a disaster. I have a bad sense of direction and I get out of my rhythm and it's not good for me. I don't do good at it, if that's the right thing. Then we stayed with Katya's friend and that helped and kind of began to feel a little more settled. And
in California.
We made it up to Northern California by that point. She stayed in California and I went to New Mexico to meet Skip. Skip is the metaphysical book publisher that has the collections that we were worried were going in the trash. And I was worried that some of Don Weldon's material that had been donated to him was going to end up in the trash. And so I've developed this relationship with Skip about supporting his legacy by saving, taking stewardship of his collection that otherwise is not going to get saved at all. And so I had a day and a half with Skip, and I also met Andy for the first time. Andy Irving for the Emotion Code, the practitioner that I've been working with for almost a year and a half.
How did you find? Okay, we'll talk about it.
He's in New Mexico also.
Right.
So I met with Skip in Santa Fe, and then my sister who lives in New Mexico, and Andy who's in New Mexico. We all had lunch.
Santa Fe is in New Mexico.
Yeah.
And it's an
hour away from Albuquerque.
State.
So then I went from there to Arizona. I flew to Arizona. No, I drove from New Mexico to Arizona. It was a nice road trip. I liked it.
How long was the trip?
6 or 7 hours. I don't know.
That's not bad.
No, it was good. I liked the desert. And then from there, I went to Prescott to meet with Fran and Mary, my two metaphysical creative guidelines legacy gals. Fran is in her early 80s. Mary's in her 60s, I would guess. Yeah, she's at least 12 or 13 years older than me. And then we went up to Fran's house. She goes up north in the summer to get out of the heat. And we went out to a nice lunch. And then we came back and Mary channeled for me. And 2 nights before, after my argument with Katya, I was very upset. And then we had separated because she stayed in California. And I went on I had this dream. And it was this unbelievable dream. And so when Mary was channeling, I was asking about what the meaning of this dream was and what, it was fascinating. I can tell you about it, but that's what the trip was. It was really a metaphysical loop. And I mixed becoming ungrounded with too much air conditioning and car stuff, and I got this thing. But it's also, this illness is about shedding my skin, sort of like another growth point. A lot of times that's what being sick is about, is moving on to another level. So that's the trip. I got lots of pictures, and then today or last night I started meditating again, and that's when I got the text from Skip about, he said, Michael, you're not going to believe this. He said, the storage unit said they didn't throw it out. He said, I thought it got thrown out last fall. And he said, it still exists. He said, we need to go get it. And I'm like, whatever is in that trailer must be very important. Because in the channeling, Mary said, you had 2 other opportunities to secure this material prior to this one. And I'm like, what did I miss,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'd love to be channeled for as well.
Yeah.
Just to ask questions, more like on my personal level, to maybe understand myself a little more. And the meaning of things.
Usually channeling is not a personal thing.
How does it work?
Okay, so you wanted to talk about channeling the last time. I thought Meta Moments today was going to be about channeling.
We're back at it. Let's go.
Okay. So the channeling that I experienced was always more broad, timeless messaging. Okay. And it specifically did not talk about any sort of fortune-telling type of stuff. No insight into yourself as an individual personality, but insight to yourself as your spirit. Mm-hmm. Spiritual teachings about love, about things like this. Not about what do I do on Wednesday when I can't. But because Mary was channeling, it was me and Fran in there. I'm like, I have some personal questions, and I want to understand some of these things. I really wanted some reassurance that what I was doing was on the right lines, and so it was very personal. I've never had that before.
Yeah.
And it felt a little weird, but I'm like, here we are, this is that, I'm like, what a gift. The reason that channelings are typically not personal, and this is Don's teaching, is that it interferes with someone else's decision, that it can be too hyper-suggestive. If I say, you're going to win the lottery on August 15th, and what I was picking up as a psychic is you win the lottery, but I was wrong on the date. It was actually August 12th, but you didn't buy your ticket until the 15th, because I said it was the 15th that you won.
Yeah, you don't want to suggest anything to people. If you, as a psychic, I assume if you know certain things, sometimes telling the person, hey, this is going to happen, will alter what actually happens.
Well, it can be someone that overuses their power too. That, the suggestive. Some people are very suggestible to that. My mom was very suggestible in front of doctors when she had cancer. We used to say, just lie to her. Just tell her she's going to be fine, and she will be fine, because it will activate that strength within her. But if you tell her otherwise, she's going to believe your authority, and you're giving that answer because of some fucking legal reason. You think this older person's going to come after you.
Placebo effect, to an extent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but placebo is real in the sense of it's it's different because you're not aware. Anyway, so it's not common in my experience, that channeling has been so specific. But I filmed it. It's here. It's on my phone. For me, it was a little unusual because I sprung it on Mary. Mary's like, oh, I haven't channeled in like decades. I'm like, well, we'll see. But she got it right. She's like, well, we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. She wasn't afraid. The thing is that I could see at this point, when it was Mary, when the connection was weakening and I saw her coming through, and when it wasn't her. And it would kind of fluctuate before, in and out. And I think that's because she hadn't channeled a lot. It's fun, it's interesting. In the video, you'll see there was a rainstorm going on at the time. It was beautiful. She's sitting there talking, and then the channel is saying, this physical body needs water. Could you please get Mary some water? And so Fran gets up to get her water, and she's just sitting there. And a minute later, she just starts coughing really, really loud. And it brought her right out of it. And she's like, what's happening? And she's like, what happened? What happened? And she's like, I heard the thunder, because I commented. I'm like, no, Fran, you asked for some water, Franz. She's like, oh, I didn't know. And so she gets some water, she drinks it, and she's like, all right, let's get back into it. And she just goes right back. It's interesting to see it on tape how Mary was in a state of trance. And when we talked about channeling, that word can be used differently. When we were in the E-Suite talking about it, I was being softer with the words because Kay's there. Kay's Muslim. This is really outlandish stuff I don't think he even listens, but why would he? It's not his jive, right?
Yeah.
But to me, I recognize channeling as a sense of receiving inspiration. And that's why I use the musicians as an example. When a musician is composing or they're in the flow, it's another form of channeling. I can't say where it comes from specifically. But the type of channeling that Mary was doing was to sit down like you are and relax, and you just say what comes to your mind. And that sounds like, well, my self-talking, is that intellect? But there's a point where the intellect releases, and it's just this talking that she's not consciously aware of. So what is that? I mean,
subconsciously something.
What is it? Right. What is it becomes less important to me than the message itself. So people could get wrapped up in saying, well, that channeled message is kind of, the oogie boogie of it, the ghostly stuff of it. I'm like, no, listen to the message. Like, there's a guy I've seen on the internet channel. His name is Bashar. Some intergalactic something or another. It's pretty far out. And if I were reading the transcripts, I'd be like, wow, this is amazing. But I cannot stand watching him. It is like not love, the projection. It's just how I interpret it through my own filter.
Aggressive, or is it like evil? What is it like?
Yeah, it's not warm and welcome, and it's not the emotional way that I need to receive information. Now, there's a lot of other people that are fine with it. That's okay. But it taught me that I'm sensitive to how I receive a message. That if you yell at me, I'm not going to be around for it. I had this experience with Tony Robbins. You know who that is? Mm-mm. Tony Robbins is an amazing speaker, and he's greatly valued around the world for giving advice to incredibly influential people. And he gives workshops, and he's very successful at that. He's a billionaire and all this sort of stuff at this point. But his approach is like right in your face. And I went to one of his workshops, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. This is not my place. You know, they got you walking on fire at the end of the day. And I was like, I'm like the one guy who did not walk on the fire. Everybody else was like, oh, and then they come, are you sure? Would you like to? I'm like, they're like, why don't you? And I'm like, I have no interest in walking on the fire. I'm like, I was not the way I needed to receive information. And someone would say, well, that you needed it more. And I'm like, no, I allowed myself to know what I did or didn't need at that time. Right. That this was out of place for me. And I went there on the behest of someone else. I realized that I'm just really sensitive into how I hear things. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way it is for me right now. Maybe not later. Maybe you could yell some amazing mathematical formulation at me that I needed to know, and you could scream it at me. You don't understand. This is... Right. Yeah. And maybe I'll get it at some point. But there's other points you could yell something really amazing at me, but because you're yelling, I don't want it.
I understand. Sometimes I come in and I'm like, Michael, my weekend was so great. Like, and you're like, calm down. I'm like,
inside voice.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. All right.
No, but relationships are like that. So yeah. So back to channeling. The channeling that I realize that I like is that I'm receptive to, that goes into my subconscious and passes my security guards, is that their messages about love, they're general, they're not specific fortune-telling messages, and the person has to have a certain credibility that I have somehow put on them. They don't need me to say whether they're credible or not. It's for me listening. Yeah. I apparently have a checklist. I'm like, do you look crazy? Do you sound crazy? Yeah. I saw this other guy and he's like starts waving his arms in the hair, and I was like, that's entertaining, but
You basically credit credibility to someone based on your checklist.
My comfort zone.
Right.
I think this is why people go to the churches they go to. This is why they belong to sports teams, fan clubs that they belong to. It matches their comfort zone.
Energy, their vibe, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, because Mary is familiar with me. Mm-hmm. And so after they channeled, they're like, okay, it's your turn. Do you want to channel? And I'm like, well, I want to channel, but not right now. I'm too nervous. And so Fran said, well, we're going to make a self-hypnosis tape for you to help you get over that so that you can channel. I saw, it was really interesting. I'll tell you this. Whether it makes to the tape, I don't know that we should put it on. So Frances had come in here. She had a guest room, and she's like, okay, lay down here, put this blanket on. She said, and I set up the computer to record her. And so she said, I'll give you a little hypnosis. And as she was walking it through, and I was familiar with it because she was using Don's technique, so it was old stuff to me. I kicked right into it. When she started talking, I saw part of the dream that I had just been talking about. That came and went fast. Mm-hmm. Then we went a little deeper. And then I saw myself sitting right here in one of our white chairs channeling. Then we went a little deeper, and then I saw myself walking on the streets of Europe in this small town. But the understanding that I had was that I didn't need the channel, that it was just there all day long, that I didn't have to be in a trance, that it was there. And then I went a little deeper, and the third thing was Villa Oasis. In Villa Oasis, I opened this door, and I could see all the invisible people that were aligned with Villa Oasis. It wasn't like people...
You couldn't tell faces or anything, right? It was just...
No, they were spiritual entities, but hundreds of them. It was a gathering point. And you don't need a physical place when you're disembodied. But there was just this... And I was like, wow, that is amazing. And so I felt like these stages that I needed to go through. And I wasn't expecting that in a self-hypnosis thing. In self-hypnosis, it was more about clearing the mind to receive this. And I never had visions.
Was it self-hypnosis or was...
Well, she was creating a tape. So
she was making the recording while she was there doing it while you were just laying next to her, essentially.
Yeah, and it was only, 10 minutes or something like that. Yeah. I never had visual markers, but I still have them in my mind. So it's very easy to go to those places. And each one was encouraging. You know, I don't know when I'll channel because I'm very self-conscious about
How do you even channel?
Well,
how do you do that?
All right, I'll show you. I'll show you.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm going to channel. It's not like that, but I'll show you what I do at home. It's absolutely
very... sort of meditation?
Yeah, so going into the funny thing is at home when I meditate, I sit on the couch and I have this blue pillow, and no matter where Edie is in the house, the minute I sit on the couch, last night she came running, my old cat, 20-year-old cat, she would jump on there. So I would sit there, and I tried it both with my eyes open and with my eyes closed. And the first thing I would do is I would just begin to breathe, kind of this, like I would do this visualization of this energy coming up through my feet, through my legs, this illumination. And so it got my body breathing, not just my mouth breathing and not just my lungs breathing, but my whole body was breathing. And then my body goes away and it becomes an energetic field that I'm more translucent, not my shirt, not my pants.
But just you as a whole.
I still see a human figure.
Right.
And then last night, or the night before, when I was meditating, I remembered what Mary was saying about alignment. And she was saying, you need to align with your finer bodies. So in metaphysics, they say that there is your physical body, there's your astral body, and there's these other finer bodies energetically that are all connected, but they're all kind of on this parallel dimensions. This other stuff.
Yeah.
So I imagined myself like this little yogi, cross-legged, but I positioned that vision of myself right in front of me here, sort of floating. So I have my body sitting in the couch, and then I have a vision of my energetic body right in front of me, floating.
Okay.
And then I brought them together. So one overlaps into the other very closely. And then I would get rid of the chatter. I would say things that I would imagine were in my imagination, like make-believe stuff. Oh, Michael, it's nice that you're sitting down and you have the courage to actually do this on camera, which is something you haven't done before. It's a big step for you to do this. It's small, but it's a huge step. And that's just my conscious mind. But when I was doing that, I feel the chills. Yeah. So I know that there's an influence around me that's encouraging that. But in my meditation, it's like I got to work through the intellect, all of the noise. And so instead of suppressing it, I decided to say it all. And so I'd go through that banter.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what do I need to hear right now? That would be encouraging. And, it's like, and then if I'm distracted, I would just kind of third person myself and be like, Michael, don't be distracted by, so-and-so. And eventually what changes for me is that I just feel more chill about it.
You're just so relaxed in a state.
Yeah, just yeah. But I have not let go. I filmed a few. When I told Mary about that, she said, oh, channeling just on your own is really hard. She's like, you need the energy of another person to be there. And I said, oh, I haven't done that yet. But for me, the start is getting rid of the intellectual noise. And this is why I asked Katya a while ago to ask me the same question again and again. Yeah. I said, exhaust my intellect. Yeah. And so it takes someone on the other side. And that's why Mary and Fran said that we'll do it, because she's like, what do you think, we're going to judge you? What do you think, you're going to control us? What do you think, you're going to say something that... She's like, out of everybody, you have nothing. No misalignment here.
I might try... I talk to myself subconsciously, like in my brain, in my head. I know some people don't. Some people don't have that inner voice. And it's very weird to me, because every time I think of something, or, I see images, like I can imagine things. Now I can't because I'm thinking about it too hard. Now it's just black screen. I talk to myself inside my head.
Well,
in a voice, whatever it is.
So that's the beginning of it. So
when I read, I also hear what I'm reading.
Okay, so you have the precondition for it. The thing is you'll find that there's self-talking, which you saw me do.
Yeah.
It's just me nervously saying things that I wish were coming from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And there's a part where it will slip into something greater. And I think that the important thing is to be in a place that's safe, vibrationally safe. The way it was at Mary's is I was sitting in a chair, she was sitting in a couch, and Fran was sitting in a chair here. Mary's like, oh, I got to raise my vibration. And so she started, But while she was doing that, I had this vision, and I'm like, oh, someone just came up behind her and put this shawl over her. But it was a shawl of light. It was this, and it was over Mary, and then they put it over Fran.
Like a scarf?
A shawl is like a blanket for your shoulders.
Okay.
It's set so you don't have to put your arms in it. And so, and one was put over Mary, one was put over Fran, and one was put over me. And I felt like it was this protective energy in some sense that aligned us all. And then when Mary I could sense when Mary's vibration was, I felt like it was more Mary than the channel in a few moments. then what I did is I brought this light out of my chest and I sent it to her, and then from her to Fran, and then from Fran to me. So I created this visual energetic flow. It was a pyramid. It was a triangle. And I thought, well, that's not bad. I'm like, well, where does that idea even come from? That's the thing.
Happened.
Yeah.
Naturally, yeah.
Right. So was that just intellectual residue from a movie I saw? I'm like, I don't care. It feels like the right thing to do. And that is a peculiar thing. But self-talk can also be, I'm trying to think of a way to say it. Self-talk can be very self-serving because your questions and your answers are all right. Like there's no discourse. And it doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just getting a cleaner connection is the primary objective. If I try to channel when I'm upset, probably wouldn't be so accurate. If you're having your self-talk, your meditation, but you're in a place in a day that you feel really depressed, I don't know, try it. Maybe it elevates you out of it. Maybe it's a hidden technique for yourself.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a loop. You know, I should have said, have you ever been upset at someone and didn't get to?
And you go back and like, oh, I should have, yeah.
Rehashing.
Right.
So is that a rehash or is that fresh, inspired dialogue? I don't think you need to be too judgy about it. I just think that if you already have that, I would say it's more of a gift than something else.
Yeah. Definitely have to try it. But it's not easy.
No, I would start with meditation.
I need to figure out the form of meditation that would work for me because, again, there are different ones. There's spiritual ones. There's the ones where you just try to clear your mind and just like not think about anything or just sit still for 5 minutes. Well, obviously it starts with 5 minutes or whatever, but
I think that's the best place to start is to just sit still and not meditate. Not frozen.
I can't. I have ADHD. I can't. Like I
not
need to
frozen
do
like a penguin.
But
so do what you can.
Yourself, yeah.
Do what you can. Just sit in the same chair. Doesn't matter if you do this. Doesn't matter if you do this. Doesn't matter if you do this. But just that day, just be there for 5 minutes. And then be there again for 5 minutes tomorrow or in the evening. 5 minutes.
Just show up.
Just show up. And let it be about your physical body. It will change. I think it will change. I'm back at 0, bro. I'm doing the 5 minute thing. It's like I got.
People do it for hours. All those monks, they meditate in like whatever, China and Japan. I don't know where they do that, but yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I got to do the same.
Might give it a try.
Yeah.
Not the first time I'm hearing about it, so I mean, it's just, it finds a way to present itself in my life more and more and more and more. Therefore, maybe if I try it, there's going to be some sort of discovery. So why would it consistently knock on my door in my life, you know?
There's probably many things that are knocking.
I'm sure there are. I just might not have recognized all of them yet.
I would say it's a safe bet for pretty much everybody. Could you imagine if we took every opportunity that we had and we were aware of it? Holy crap, would that be amazing?
Well, not every opportunity is great for you. Every positive opportunity.
Oh, I don't know. I was going to say that I would... my initial thing is, yeah, I would agree with that from a word standpoint.
Yeah.
But from the spiritual standpoint of like these things that I need to learn, and they're being pushed forward with catalysts. That was in the channeling. You should watch the channeling. It's very fascinating.
Well, watch the channeling, like
what Mary did.
Oh yeah.
It's not riveting. It's just this unique experience to me. I like the boldness that Mary has. That just both she and Fran are like, oh, okay, I'll do it. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. You're warming up to it.
Yeah,
it's a new thing for you, so
we'll see.
But yeah, I think we can wrap it up. We have talked for quite some time.
Always.
It's always a good time to just sit and talk and think about things. Thank you for watching. This was Meta Talk with me, Pasha, and MichaelJoy.
I thought you were going to give yourself an amazing last name.
Oh my God, Big P. No, I don't know. I don't want to make up my last name. I just prefer not to say it.
Okay.
Always a great time being here, talking about all kinds of things. I think we've touched on a lot of interesting conversations today.
Well, it's
topics.
Good. Both of us are lightheaded today.
Yeah.
I'm kind of coffee congested. You got it. Something too.
Something's happening, but hopefully nothing too serious.
No, I don't think it is. It's a cleansing.
Thank you for watching. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing and leave your comments, concerns, questions down in the comments below.